Good evening and welcome to The Point. This evening we'll be discussing the industrial units, so to speak, that the President launched a couple of days ago. He launched 1,657 units in 7 governorates. The units are encompass industrial complexes for the youth. How is this going to help in revamping this energy, the youth energy, into that sector? How is it helping our economy? And maybe SMEs, how is that really affecting that sector, which has been suffering as of late, especially in the aftermath of COVID-19? With us this evening to shed light on this issue is Mr. Nader Khedr, who is senior investment expert. More aptly put, he engineers finance. A pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
The President launched those complexes. It is worth noting that it is not restricted to one governorate. It's all over Egypt, so to speak, in 7 governorates, addressing different sectors. How do you feel this project will contribute to our financial reform, especially in the aftermath of COVID? I know that we have not suffered like others, but still there are some hardships, so to speak. How do you see us, this project contributing?
Actually, to be able to assist the impact of such industrial parks, if you allow me to rectify the definition, as you need to the UN Development and Process Organization stated it's an industrial park, not complex, where we gather some SMEs or medium-sized industrial entities having all facilities being available for them to compete and produce whatever the complex is designated for. Complexes or parks are mainly designed, or the concept has been developed from the integration point of view, which means a park to be stated as an industrial park or as an SME's industrial park has to be fledged with the integration between its activities. So we should have, for example, at Mahal Kobra, we can see we are dealing with chemicals, engineering, and textiles. If we look at Mahal al-Kobra's demographics and main industries there, we would know that the chemicals would be into the paints. The textiles would be into the small factories that can convert or process plain sheets into shirts and into blouses.
So, for those who are not aware, it's one of the famous textile cities in Egypt. Yes.
Exactly. So if we are looking at this park or this complex, yes. So you would find the integration between processing the plain textile sheets, painting it, having the engineering industries for feeding in the supply parts for both chemicals and textile processing, yes. SMEs. So this is the basic concept of the industrial park, where the UNIDO has developed it even more during the past 4 years, developing the EIP concept.
Meaning?
Energy efficient industrial park, or energetic industrial parks, or effective industrial parks. To have an effective industrial park, we have to look at 3 conditions, basically. Energy efficient usage, highly production yield, and high utilization for both material and labor.
Okay.
So if we are looking at these parks as a raw model for many other parks in Egypt, and I know there are over 100 parks in Egypt, but yet to be announced gradually, we would see that the integration and the harmonization between the entities and their activities in the same park and the availability of the facilities would be a high importance necessity to have it. Because if there's any facility is not available, let's say, for example, Bayad al-Arab and Ben Suwaif, it's a little bit in the desert, little bit dealing with food processing and nutrition chemicals.
Yes.
If we don't have quite highly effective water treatment and waste treatment plants, there would be an environmental disaster there. So I'm not speaking instantly, but over the time, the catastrophe will develop and pop up like a popcorn in our face. Of course, this would be a huge problem. So I hope that these parks are having these facilities available. I hope these parks does not have any problems like the ones I used to manage a couple of years ago while I was with one of the most reputable investment authorities in Egypt. I hope that the concentration that I see in Upper Egypt, if we calculated it, we would find nearly 43% of them are located in Upper Egypt, around 36 of them in Mahalla alone.
Yes.
And this is a huge number. Over 12% in Hurghada, around 10% in or 12% in Alex, and around 14% in Hurghada. So the higher concentration is in Upper Egypt, which serves mainly the direction of the state, having the development activities and the Upper Egypt being the tractor for the development during the coming 3 to 5 years. About its impact.
How is it different? Before we go into impact, since you were with Gafi in the past, and you handled projects which are similar, how is the situation different when you were in Gafi, which was a couple of years ago, so to speak, and the situation today? How do you, well, we were missing Corona, let's put it that way.
Of course.
But how is this investment, this injection at this time with the youth different from how business was done in the past? Before we go
actually, it's not a new injection. This project has been in the pipeline for the past 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
Actually, Mergem 2 is one of the parks that I have been looking at as a competitor while I was handling other investment parks or industrial parks over the past 2 years. I know it's in the pipeline. I know it would be offered soon. I know it would be serving sort of a kind of some industries that I'm targeting for my parks. So accordingly, it's not a new injection. It has been known that these projects are in the pipeline coming out. However, there was some obstacles in front of it, which what the president have privileged the SMEs lifting these obstacles out of their ways, which was one of them, the pricing.
Yes.
We were selling sometimes a 100-meter square workshop for £100,000 per year, which was a very high cost for the SMEs at the time, especially that we were still having the impacts or the repercussions of the devaluation, having the slowdown in our demand size, having our relatively high yield interest rates, tightening the financing options for the SMEs, even though with the initiative of financing the SMEs with 5% and 7% and 12%, All this was having its impact on the SMEs. When the President Sisi, His Excellency, interfered by downsizing the selling price or the rental price for such
Yes.
parks, it was like a CPR for the SMEs, a case of life.
And
to bring
the
them back.
timing of it right now?
The timing of it right now is we are already having great markets being open in front of us, even for the textiles, for the for the food processing, for the FMCGs, all this industry, for the agriculture products. The corona has devastated the international supply side, and it's our opportunity to grasp new areas and new markets to place our landmark and footsteps in it, and footmarks. So accordingly, encouraging the SMEs now by lower price for the rent, high incentives in tax incentives and tax lift-outs. Of course, it's not a complete lift-out of tax. It's
Yes.
around 50%, especially for specific industries in specific areas in the Upper Egypt, where Bayad al-Arab and other complexes or parks are among them. We're talking about Gerga, we're talking about Luxor, we're talking about Minyab and Suwaif. All these places are privileged with this tax slashes of 50%. So we are giving them the opportunity to work. I personally know...
In the past, because you said that this idea has been in the pipeline, was it in the pipeline addressing the youth?
Yes, for the SMEs especially.
Because SMEs can be anybody, it doesn't have to be the
Exactly,
youth. But
exactly.
we're saying this time it's directed, this support is for the young people.
If you reviewed the law 72 for 2017, you would find that the SMEs established with a young man whose age between the 25 to 35 or 40 would have higher privileges and higher incentives to encourage him to be an entrepreneur than others being established by a 40 person and above. So it's already being legislated in the law. So accordingly, it has been designated. Currently, what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing actually, we are not anymore a state of a spontaneous action for what we are suffering of. No, we have our plans, we have our agendas, we have our roadmaps. We're going through it even if nobody is understanding why we are heading this way. And that's what has been happening through the past 3 years. The President Sisi many times stated that we are seeing coming threats. We know what we are going to suffer of. We see what's up ahead, and we are preparing for it. No one imagined that it could be a coronavirus and a plague. It could be a diplomatic civil war over the Mediterranean. And I'm very specific about my terminology. It's a diplomatic civil war. It's not a state war. It's not a diplomatic state war even. It's a diplomatic civil war. Okay? So what we are seeing now, Egypt is placing itself among the big 10. The IMF report recently issued has stated Egypt one of the biggest 15 economies within the coming 3 to 4 years. Our contribution in the global GDP growth would be more than 10 to 15%. Egypt itself alone.
Yes.
We are a huge market of 101 million capita. Even though we have still 7 million refugees living among us. Syrians, Iraqis, Sudanese, and
Yes.
others.
Yes.
All this has commenced SMEs. We now see the SMEs of the Syrian refugees and the Iraqi refugees in 6th of October City, in Tagamma, even in Old Cairo. In the Fatimic Cairo, we see Syrians and Iraqis opening groceries, opening harbors, opening a lot of projects. So why don't we take what we can convert from trading to industrial into such parks and industrial parks? I have the privilege of meeting one of the great businessmen, not mentioning his name,
Yes.
Who works in the electronics. And he has a lot of feeding industries. I had an idea of having an agreement with him to fill up the parts he used to manage. I went to him and I told him I would give you an incentive to you and your feeding industries entities owners if you agree to encourage them to come and be in the park itself. He said, okay, I will take 50% of the units in the park you are offering me.
Yes.
And I have another land. I would like you to give me a solution. So you and your company, when I used to be the managing director or executive director of it, to manage it for me, for feeding industries and logistics. This is one businessman of a lot in Egypt. How would you think it would be if we started to approach such industries, having a lot of feeding entities by this way? A lot of them are youth. A lot of them are not legalized for their structure yet. If we did this, we would be able to convert at least 25% of the non-legal or unknown economy, or the 25% of the shadow economy, which in some estimates reach around 50 to 70% of the legalized economy.
Is the environment, for example, the banking system, the taxation system, is it conducive, is it attractive to the shadow economy, or I would assume we would call it, the average layman would say, the informal economy,
Exactly.
so to speak, which really is a very, very important part of our economy, and it contributed quite largely at difficult times. The financial system, as we see it, is it conducive? Is it attractive to this shadowy economy?
I will try to be a little bit more diplomatic in my answer for this question. In the Doing Business report for 2020, we have upgraded ourselves for, I think, 5 to 7 places. We are around mid-50s or mid-40s, I can't remember exactly. However, more restructuring actions needed to be taken within the banking system and its conditions and criteria for accepting the SMEs, for the taxation system and its processing with the SMEs and all of that. Yet, the digitalizing era that we have been pushed through due to the COVID-19 has rattled or fastened the tone of this restructuring actions. One of the most important restructuring actions is the legalization and licensing process for the e-payment and the digital treatment of the financial and legal payments. Of course, taxation, licenses fees, registration, all this. We now have 3 laws that mainly address digital financial treatments. or transactions.
Yes.
The first is the new banking law, which has been issued in the 15th of September, which has a whole chapter around the e-payment and digital banking. That's one. The second is non-cash payment law. If I'm correct, which is a law is numbered 118 for the year 2020, and it was issued during the first half of 2020, and its executive regulations has been issued in September also. The third is the electronic identification law for all moving vehicles, which some of them are small Cossacks moving along the roads.
Yes.
All these digitalizations enables the financial system. And actions that has been recently taken by the taxes authority in Egypt, the automated or the digital payment through the POS points or the payment points that's been being stated and issuing an electronic invoices.
Yes.
All this allows the informal sector to be more formal. I might be having my entity not registered, not licensed, not processing any legal papers. Yet, I do all my payments and my personal paper treatments through the electronic and non-cash payments. When I taste the easiness or the facilitation of such treatment, I would go and consider, why don't I go to GAFI, for example, or the commercial registration and start having my entity licensed? Why don't I go to one of the parks and start having my entity licensed, having the ability and the probability to export my production within the official export program for Egypt?
The fact that we have not only allocated those parks in certain governorates, but also in certain industrial fields.
Yes, exactly.
Because in the past, whenever I talk to someone from the financial or business sector, I would always ask about identifying our competitive edge. You cannot do everything.
Yes, exactly.
Or let's put it that way, you cannot compete
with everything, with everyone.
With everyone. But you can definitely stand head and shoulders in certain fields and fill maybe a vacuum or grab quite a large chunk of the market.
This is the
globally.
reason that we are launching these parks these days. Because the Asian exporters for vegetables and fruits filled out the demand in Europe and America, where I know persons that having an export station for vegetables and fruits here in Egypt. They are seeking any financing that they can find for only one reason. We have a lot of demands and requests we cannot help.
So there is a vacuum in the market which we can fill.
Our capacity is failing short of the demand globally. Why? Because the Asian exporters and the Latin American exporters has failed out due to the coronavirus and the implications there, which we are expecting that we
to continue. So there is more
gap
room
to be
gap to be filled. Can I ask you a question? We know that COVID-19 right now is really hitting badly in Europe.
Yes.
It is hitting badly in the United States.
Yes.
Worth knowing, the United States, since the outcome really has been hit back, it did not take this break maybe that Europe took.
They have elections. They are more concerned about the elections than COVID-19.
So there is prediction that come winter, even this part of the world will be hit with the so-called second wave. Can we stand on our feet, fill this vacuum, taking into account we might also be hit again? If we look at international trends, I mean, this is how the world is moving, so we have to assume that we could be moving in the same direction.
Now, the Middle Eastern region and Southern African region will not be hit as bad as Europe and as America. Why is that? Let me give you a very simple example. When your child was 2-3 years old and he wanted to go and play on the street, what would you say for him while he's going to play in the dust with Portal's child? No, don't do that, right?
Yes.
Our children here and our youth now here has been dealing with various forms of, let's say it, uncleanness for the Europeans. Okay? We are here dealing with sand, with dust, with sandstorms, upheavals in the weather that the Europeans are not used to. Winter and summer. The Europeans in summer, they deal with rain. Mainly London and Scandinavians deal with rains all summer. And in the winter, they deal with snow. So they are not exposed to develop their immunity system as much as we have been exposed. So the Mediterranean region and population having more immunal system, more upgraded immune system and more degraded immune system than the Europeans.
Yes.
This is one. The second, if you look at the demographics for the European and North American continents, you would find that the over 50 aged population
It's higher.
is high. We are the complete reverse.
But wave 2 is not hitting the elderly only.
I know this.
In Europe, majority of those affected by wave 2 are
mid-aged. I know this.
middle and young people.
Yes, but what we are talking about, having good immunity system, having precautionary actions and precautionary preparations would help. We dealt with the first wave totally in professional manner that avoided us total closure and total collapse.
Going back to the youth issue, how is this project or similar projects, how will they incorporate or economize our young generation? For example, participation in political parties, participation in elections. You politicize people from a young age. The Presidential Youth Forum that the President has created, it allows youth, it gives the youth an opportunity to start practicing and learning about politics at a young age. When it comes to those industrial parks, the fact that you're granting and helping young people to go out there and set up a dream business. Not only that, but maybe even directing them in which industry do you need to...
according to the environment where you live.
And according to the need, according to the economic needs or the market needs, because it's not just a matter of
the raw materials that you are having.
Exactly.
For Mahal al-Kubra, you cannot go there and say, I would make a fast food factory. From where would you get
so it's done with more of R&D as the backbone. How does this economize our youth? How will this affect how they participate in economic reform? Their mentality, their economic and financial, even intellect, if I can put it that way.
Actually, as soon as he gets into a legalized, harmonized entity enclosed with or inclusive with a legal body such as this parks does not operate from itself or by itself.
Yes.
These parks need an owners league to have a committees knowing what it needs to be done and what need to be postponed and what's high necessity to be rushly done and this ways. Second, the owners league will be contributing with the governmental committees and governmental bodies for the legislative needs that to be done for them. Having more period for tax incentives, having more transportation lines for labor, having more infrastructure, having all this will not be done by itself. We have to do the owners league or the committees that come out of the owners league that will start addressing the issues of the owners and entrepreneurs in these parks. One of the main things that I have learned while reading and learning about the UNIDO effective industrial parks concept, which is the EIP raw model, how to handle the politics between the owners of such park getting to a council for the owners league. The owners league have its general assembly, the owners league have its board, the owners league have its council, have its own president. All this would prepare them to be a fully fledged political citizen.
Okay. Before we wrap up, I need to ask you about the value of the dollar in the aftermath of all those actions. Earlier you said that the president has an agenda. He's working on the agenda regardless of
who is understanding and who's not.
Or regardless of the hardship. We have a plan, an action plan, and we're sticking to the action plan. The question is, this action plan, this ambitious action plan, how will it affect the value of the pound? Because since the devaluation, we really suffered a lot of hardships.
Yes.
I know now we import less, at least the strategic commodities. Also part of the presidential plan is to self-sufficiency when it comes to strategic commodities. Projects like these will increase production, thus not only will they increase exports, but they will also decrease imports in those sectors. Exactly. How will this reflect on the value of the Egyptian pound?
Let me tell you something. The main targets or the main aims for the current phase of our agenda or state agenda is to revive the industries that we have been having in the past ages. And currently we are importing its products. Among these industries, and on top of them, textiles, food, beverages, and machinery for jewelry and accessories manufacture. The simple small machineries for shaping jewelries and such accessories manufacturing. His Excellency Hisham Tawfi is Minister of Public Sector, has stated lots and lots of times that reviving the city of Al-Mahalla's role is one of his top priorities. And he's working on it to solve all the financial and legislative problems, especially with the labor issues and the rights. This is why he's currently considering to resolve one of the most important issues that have been hardening and harshing the city of Mahalla Kubra, which is the supply chain.
Yes.
From where do we get the cotton? We started producing short tela cotton in and east to Ynet. This is one step in the supply chain. The other, the chemicals, the complex in Mahalla Cobra, which will have a painting chemical industries, would solve the other issue. So this is two issues. The third one in the supply chain is the ginning of the cotton, converting the cottons into threads.
Yes.
So that the factories can convert into sheets after that. So we have solved 3 steps. We're now working on the 4th, where we have a lot of ginning.
How will this affect the value of the pound?
You would be importing less. You would have surplus in your trade balance. You would have lower pressure in demanding the foreign currency. Accordingly, the pound would be needed more, desired more, demanded more. Accordingly, its value would raise gradually. However, having a huge increase in the pound's value currently would hurten our exports. So we would have to play it very cautiously, because it's
What's a fair value compared to the dollar? In your opinion, what's a fair value that would not have hurt our exports, nor our imports, nor the value of our money as a consumer?
Let me answer you this question after I review what is the fair value or the needed value for our strategic foreign reserve.
We have a couple of minutes left, please.
No, I can answer it now, of course, because we have to review the foreign reserve of us for at least a year and a half to be sustainably stable in our imports and strategic storage. And after that, we can say how much our pound would
generally speaking. We did
currently
below $10 or above.
$10?
Yes.
You're very ambitious.
Yes, of course.
Currently, we are talking about that the current pound is valuated at around 3.5 cents or somewhere around this place. To be honest, we see the fair value according to current circumstances around 11.7 pounds per dollar, 12.8 pounds per dollar, which means around 8 cents to from 6.5 to 8 cents.
Okay.
Okay, but to reach this, we still need the market mechanism work a little bit more to rectify the situation.
Mr. Nader Khedr, thank you very much for joining us this evening on To The Point. I'd like to thank you, the viewers. We'll see you same time next week. Until then, good night.